Welcome everyone to this panel, Aligning the Educational System and Labor Markets with Green Transition Needs. I'm David John, I'm currently an undergrad student at Tsinghua University, and I'm also from Finland. I'll have a brief introduction for our speakers today. We have Sam Barrett, is the chief of the Youth Education and Advocacy Unit in UNEP's Ecosystems Division. Carolyn Juki serves as the chief technical advisor for the ILO in Kenya. Dr. Salim Ray is a lecturer and faculty member from the Center for Global Competence Development at Tsinghua University. Vanya Yerena is a Global South Youth Leader advocating for quality education to empower youth and insert them on the job market. Iman Berry is the co-founder of Green Amma, a nonprofit that provides education on the religious connections to the environment and environmental justice for young people across Canada. And Luke is the sustainable finance focal point of the CYMG to UNEP, and also a PhD researcher at Imperial College London working on energy economics. We are honored to have Sam today with us here. Sam, as I mentioned, is chief of the Youth Education and Advocacy Unit at UNEP's Ecosystems Division. At UNEP, he leads the work to support universities to decarbonize, become nature positive, and engage governments on evolving curriculum and the education system to be aligned with environmental requirements of today. He founded the Playing for Planet Alliance, a collaboration with the video gaming industry to nudge gamers' behavior and for the industry to use cleaner energy. He also manages the non-formal education program work at UNEP, which involves working with the largest youth movements such as the World Association of Girl Guides and the World Organization of the Scout Movement under the Tide Turners Plastic Challenge Badge Project. Now I'd like to warmly welcome Sam to deliver some opening remarks for our panel today. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Sam. And what I wanted to do today is just give you a quick overview of where we think things are going in terms of green jobs and skills, and to maybe give some practical advice for those in the room and online thinking about what are the things to be bearing in mind as we go through this rapid transition from an old energy system to a new energy system, and what are the opportunities for young people out there in this brave new world that's coming in front of us. One thing I want to start by saying is, like, the theme of resilience at UNEA, I think, is absolutely critical, because we need resilience both in people and in the planet to really help us meet this really critical moment in history where we can have a set of different choices around what kind of planet we leave behind for those that are coming behind us. I really feel like the critical thing to be thinking about is how do we build both the competency and the capability of young people to be ready for what's coming next. Often we talk about the negative, about the tipping points that come with every 0.1 degrees of warming, but there are also many positive tipping points that we can harness, and that, I think, comes from the young people in this room, in this assembly, but out there in the world that can make that change. At the end of this, I want you to think about, hopefully, at the end of the talk, an idea about where the greatest opportunities are, what skills and experiences matter, and maybe 2 to 3 ideas about what to do next. So very briefly, UNEP has been working on green jobs and skills for a number of years. There is PAGE, the Programme of Action for the Green Economy. We've been working very closely with Caroline and ILO and UNICEF on the Green Jobs for Youth Pact, which is taking shape very nicely. And more recently, we've done an assessment about what jobs are possible in the domain of nature-based solutions. And I think that is an area which I'll touch on in a bit more detail. I want to say thank you both to CYMG and Gibbon for all of their work in these domains, and also for David and the Tsinghua University for putting on this panel. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what other people say. So I'm just going to begin by talking about what are the sectors with the greatest opportunities. There's a lot of data out there, but the place where I've spent a bit of time working with is LinkedIn for the past 10 years, to think about how this roundabout of both supply and demand can share with us where are those jobs in the world. What's good to see is green jobs are running at 7.7% a year, whereas other jobs are running at 4.3% a year. So there is a much higher demand for people looking for green jobs and skills in the world. What's also good to know is people that have green jobs and skills in their profile have a 43% higher chance of being recruited than those that don't. So having a green skill which Caroline will speak to from ILO, I think gives you a better chance of being hired in the world than not. The areas where I think there are greater opportunities is clearly energy management, the transition to green, clean tech. And we're seeing that as the number one area for jobs. Number two, which surprised me, is sustainable education. So teaching people around what are the skills that can be mainstreamed across all jobs. The third is around waste prevention. So thinking about circular economy, how we deal with everything that we create. So this is what LinkedIn is saying are the big three in terms of the sectors that are hiring. In Africa, FSD have done a similar assessment, and number one again is renewable energy. But number two is farming and agronomy. And I'm going to touch on this in a bit more detail shortly. And number three is circular economy and waste management. On farming and agronomy, this, I think, is an area where there are huge opportunities. Like, hands up for those in the room, are you attracted to working in this space? Can I see a show of hands? Not many. And this is an issue. This is a graying part of the economy where only 14% of people work in this space between the ages of 15 and 35. So this is something for the mzes mainly. And this is something that should worry us, because unless we have a workforce that's prepared to get involved in nature, in farming, in agronomy, we won't have the world that we need or the food on the plates that we're looking for. We need to do a much better job of making these jobs more attractive. And the good news is you don't necessarily need a university career for these roles. They're there for everyone everywhere already. So what I think we need to do is with UNEP, we've done a whole paper that we'll be sharing over the course of the next few days around how can youth move into these jobs in nature? What are the big opportunities in nature-based solutions? And my colleague Mariana and I are happy to talk to you in a bit more detail on that. Now, just as two bits of wisdom to leave the room with, which is just around how to move into these roles and what are the two key things that I think young people need. And the first of all, I'd say is I think certificates matter, but experience beats it probably hands down. The more you have experiential learning, the more you expose yourself to the applying of theory into practice, the more likely you are to get these roles. So really thinking about how you have that learning by doing opportunity is key. But the second thing is being agile, being transferable, and being open to opportunities that are adjacent to your dream so that you can move zigzag. So you don't just have a linear path, but you pick up experience as you go. And I always think about jobs coming through a slalom where you go left, then you go right, then you go left, then you go right, and you pick things up as you go, learning new things quickly and moving on and fast. So keeping agile, keeping open is key. The thing is, I do think there needs to be a better compact between governments and young people, because that compact, I think, is brittle and needs to be strengthened. We do need to see in their commitments on NDCs and MBSAPs a lot more talk about skills and jobs. Without people, the transition will not happen. And not many, when we've done an assessment of the climate policy radar, commitments think about skills and jobs and youth. That needs to change. The second thing is we need to be broadcasting and signposting to young people, what is the talent that we need for the future? And we still think in the past, not the future, in many of these kind of challenges. So there needs to be a shift in getting young people to focus on what they need to do with soft and hard skills to be relevant. And the third thing I'll say, just to wrap up, is this has to be a much higher political priority. This shouldn't be a side event discussion. This needs to be in the center of the halls because we need to deliver for both people and planet. Young people want to know where are the jobs for them. They are nervous about what lies ahead. In order to make that change, we need to make green jobs, green skills a political priority. It needs to be at the front and center of the MTS. We at UNEP are keen to keep pushing that, but with your support at CYMG and others in the room, I think we can do more. So many thanks for listening. I'm going to hand over to the panel to add their perspectives. I hope it was a good use of your time and your attention. And I hand over back to you, David, to take us forward into the next section.
Thank you so much, Sam, for your opening remarks. I'm pretty sure that everyone here at least has an interest in trying to get into the environment and helping these issues. So please take its words to heart, and I'm sure it'll help you all a lot. Next up, we have 4 panelists over there. They will have around 8 minutes each to provide their perspective on the issue, and then after that, we'll move on to a short Q&A session. So first we have Caroline. Caroline serves as the Chief Technical Advisor for the ILO in Kenya, focusing on inclusive jobs and educational skills for host communities and refugees. Prior to her current post, she headed the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, Regional Secretariat on Forced Displacement and Mixed Migration, an initiative that sought to address development impacts of displacement and mixed migration. Between 2008 and 2011, she worked with the International Organization for Migration in Somalia on migration governance. Before her assignments in the Horn of Africa region, Caroline worked as a community-based organization in Berlin that supported African migrants in their asylum process. So considering your role in the ILO, what policy or institutional shift do you think is most urgently needed to better align education and labor systems with sustainability goals? Thank you.
Should I use this maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a really beautiful Sunday morning in Nairobi. So I hope we bring that kind of energy into the room. I speak from a Kenyan perspective because this is where I serve, but while at the same time drawing on global perspectives because, of course, the ILO works in more than one country. A couple of reflections from my end. Green skills that will support green jobs are still evolving. And a lot of research has been done. We do have classifications for what constitutes, is it a green skill? At the ILO, we talk about skills for green jobs. So we don't talk about green skills. Yeah, it's the skills that will really power the transition. But that list is still not exhaustive. And we may align towards sort of a global taxonomy. We still have very local nuances when it comes to what skills are powering the transition. And I'll tell you why. Because economies around the world are all in very different points of development. Yeah. So you have countries like Kenya where agriculture is very key. But when you look at how agriculture is evolving in Kenya, there's a lot of work to be done there. Whereas in other countries where agriculture has been commercialized, a lot of sustainable practices and therefore skills that power that sustainability have already been integrated. And so it's very important to take into place these nuances between the different countries, depending on what the priority sectors are in those countries, but also the state of development. And I'll just like to reflect on a couple of issues and why that is important. So one, from a policy angle, is to understand, to have a very good labor market intelligence. And this is information that tells you what are the skills in demand. So are these skills in agriculture? Are they in manufacturing? A country like Kenya, as you've moved around, you will see that we do not have as many EVs probably as in some of your countries, but you see them. So the question is, do we have the skills, for instance, to either manufacture the EVs? Is that what we need? Or if Kenya is not manufacturing the EVs, but is buying EVs, we need maintenance of those EVs. So do we have skills for that kind of maintenance? If it's in agriculture, are we talking about precision agriculture? And what are those skills then that would power that precision agriculture? So conducting job assessment is absolutely important because that also helps you to identify what emerging occupations are. And this is informed by employers. So very important, I've mentioned employers, engaging with industry associations, yeah? Because these jobs are created within industries, and industries will tell you, this is where we are moving, this is where we have the skills gaps. That takes you to the next step and has to be embedded in policy, but also practice, and that has to do with curriculum. Because most of the curriculums are generally lacking, and I'll talk about Kenya, we are generally lacking occupations that power the transitions. If you look at, it's a hot country, so the sun is there almost throughout the year, but still struggling with solar installation, so, and because that has not been embedded into the curriculum. So once we have the identification of those priority occupations, then it is integrating them, introducing them into the curriculum, or at times it's just reviewing the curriculum to integrate those green, and I will talk about green and digital because the two of them go together. And ensure that this is not just for theoretical training, but this is anchored on real competencies around on green technologies. Also means we need to equip TVET institutions and trainers. And considering the gap that currently exists in Kenya, but across a couple of countries, especially in East Africa, and I think I can comfortably speak to in that regard. TVET institutions still do not have the requisite equipment to support the training around skills for green jobs. And so once those have been identified, then equip the TVET institutions. But even more importantly is to equip the trainers, because this is also a new area for them. So upskill them, but also get new trainers integrating those curriculums as part of their delivery. Partnering with private sector, and this ensures that as technology that is powering green transitions is happening, the trainers are kept aware of this. Let me use an example. I'll use the EVs again. There has been training over many years around motor vehicle repair. Now with the EVs, a lot of the technology is with the industries, not within the TVET sector, not within the TVET institutions. So then how do we ensure that as the trainers are upskilling, they also have real exposure in industry so that they are in tandem with those technologies? Otherwise, this can also remain quite theoretical. And then it brings us back to the challenge of TVET graduates not being very well trained. So having those collaborations, both to enhance teacher training, but also, and I think I can segue to my next point, is ensuring that collaboration is also for the students, ensuring that they can get hands-on training, work exposure in this emergent area. Inclusion is absolutely key in policies that are supporting just transition, because we don't want to leave anyone behind. And here we are talking about whether it's persons with disabilities, we're talking about young people especially, but also we're talking about refugees as well in countries that host refugees like Kenya. And it's also very important to provide career guidance, because as Sam was already talking about, do young people necessarily know what occupations are there to support the just transition? So once we have the labor market information, it is also ensuring that that's broken down in a way that is well understood by young people so that they're able to pursue those opportunities in the green economy. Promoting localization of training. I'm speaking, this panel has some colleagues from China, where the economy is well developed, where robotics is an everyday reality. It may not be the same in Kenya. It may be that we are looking at very basic circular economy principles to ensure sustainability. So that having that differentiated training, but that is also rooted on local realities, is absolutely important, because what necessarily works in China or in Germany or in South Korea may not work here. And even if it does, there's still local nuances that need to be integrated. Next is certification and recognition pathways. We already do have some people that are, even young people that are already engaged in skills for green jobs. Maybe they self-trained on solar installation. Yeah, maybe one went to the University of, do you know the Ivy League University of YouTube? Do you know it? Yeah, maybe they went and learned how to, an occupation that is supporting the green transition, but may not have acquired a certificate. So how do we ensure that at the national level, we do have systems that recognize such competence, but also certify it, because that helps whoever is holding that certification to be able to get into the formal sector and just have different pathways. I've talked about apprenticeship, internships, but it's also good to invest in job placement and career pathways. And these will really be supported by the collaborations with industry that I spoke to before, but also engaging with public employment services within the countries to ensure that the green economy is not left behind as support is being provided to the other sectors. As I close, is also embedding green skills into enterprise development. How many of you have heard about ESGs? ESG? I thought all the hands will go up. Yeah. Yeah, environmental, social, and governance standards. And this is absolutely critical. But businesses, increasingly, there is a requirement that businesses comply with these standards. And it's not just a stick, it's also a carrot, because businesses that do not put sustainability at the heart of what they do will not only, there's a risk of not accessing global markets and global supply chains, but there's a risk of just bare sustainability. Yeah, because we know that our planet does not have limitless resource, right? And so ensuring that that thinking is also being passed on to businesses, and that in not just the big multinationals, it is also for the small and micro enterprises that characterize the economy, for instance, in Kenya. And yes, many of them are struggling to just stay afloat. Yeah, but it's absolutely important to ensure that this knowledge is passed on to them and their capacities are built to make them competitive and sustainable. So tying this together really is what ensures that there is a clear link between and policy between what it is that the labor market requires and how it is that we do train. And in Kenya, we have followed sort of this framework that I've explained. Kenya has recently adopted the National Green Skills and Jobs Strategy that we worked together with UNEP and other colleagues within the UN system. We are now in the process of establishing the possible gaps, and I think Sam mentioned that, so that can help train and incrementally. It may be that we are told there are 100 occupations. Are we able to train 100 or establish 100 occupations at once? Probably not, but we can pace that depending on how urgently those occupations are needed. Collaboration with industry is absolutely key, as I mentioned, and we do have a platform that is also supported by UNEP and ourselves that was formed around building skills for green jobs. It's called AGSO, and together that is bringing private sector, government, and the UN to just have a better understanding of what the needs for the private sector are. So I'd like to stop there and come later should there be need. Over to you, David.
Thank you, Caroline, for those words. There's certainly a lot of information, but as we're a bit short on time, I won't go on too much. Next up, we have Dr. Xiao. Dr. Xiao is a lecturer and faculty member from the Center of Global Competence Development at Tsinghua University. At CGYD, he engages in the work to provide guidance, support, and resources for all Tsinghua students on global competence development and to promote the integration of global competence development into the university-wide student cultivation process. He is dedicated to Tsinghua Global Youth Dialogue, TGYD, a growing platform for international youth exchange, cooperation, and action. He leads the team to invite outstanding youth from around the world to come together, exchange ideas, and co-create solutions to some of the most urgent challenges of our time. So Dr. Xiao, how can universities and educational institutions integrate sustainability and green skills into curricular, research, and campus practices to better prepare students for the green transition?
distinguished college participants, and dear young leaders, greeting to everyone. Shikamu. Habari, habari, habari. I greatly appreciate everyone for coming today. My name is Xiaoyuan Rui, lecturer and faculty member of Center for Global Competence Development at Tsinghua University. It's both an honor and pleasure to serve as panelist for this significant session, which focus on aligning educational system and labor markets with green transition needs. I would like to share some perspective of the university side. Let me begin with a brief introduction of Tsinghua University. Tsinghua was founded in 1911. It's one of the Asia's leading research university, ranked amongst the world's top 20 and #1 in Asia. Also, Tsinghua is leading in fields linked to the green transition. For example, our School of Environment ranks among the global top 10 in environmental sciences. In addition, Tsinghua also has top computer science school in the world, so we have significant advantages in empowering the environmental science with AI technology. Nevertheless, I would like to explore the name of our university with you. Tsinghua, the name Tsinghua combines two Chinese characters. The first one is Qing, which means clean and pure, and the second character is Hua, which means China, suggesting a vision of a clean and sustainable country. We also had a well-known alumni. Perhaps you are familiar with him. He is a great leader of China now. Who wants to guess? Yes, correct. He is President Xi Jinping, our most respectful and brilliant alumni. Back in 2005, he has pointed out that 绿水青山就是金山银山, which means lucid waters and large mountains are invaluable assets. Because these perspectives, Tsinghua has always been committed to ecological civilization and green development. It is in this spirit that I joined you today. We often hear that young people are the future, but through our work and lived experience, we see that youth are not only leaders of tomorrow. You guys are already shaping the world today. Am I right? Thank you. I'm honored to share how Tsinghua and Tsinghua students did within the platform of green transition. There are three key words I want to share: green innovation, green governance, and green practice. First, the green innovation. Tsinghua placed a significant attention to cultivating students' green transition. And this is increasingly visible both on campus and in the labor market. On the one hand, young students are developing climate solutions that combines scientific rigor with real-world impact. On the other hand, Tsinghua dedicates to providing guidance, support, and resources for students' innovation. For instance, every student in Tsinghua has their own AI agent and a large amount of computing powers free to use. Due to that, many Tsinghua students already carry their own innovations in their student career, such as one student team recently enrolled in international recognition for an AI-driven microbial regulation system designed for carbon-negative treatment process. And another team won a gold medal by creating a microbial solution to degrade plastic waste. There is no doubt that the student who already carried fantastic green innovations could have outstanding performance in the green transition labor market. Second, the green governance. Tsinghua also treats its own campus as a living laboratory for sustainability and invites students to become co-builders of a green university. Over the past decade, the university has integrated green infrastructure, rebuilding, and the low-carbon design into campus building. As far as Tsinghua is concerned, equally important is the way students participate in green campus governance. Through student-led sustainability initiative and cooperation with Tsinghua Green Campus Office, young people are involved in the assignment of campus events, the use of common spaces, the promotion of energy saving, and the waste management in tutorial and classrooms. This is called governance mode helps students build a brilliant and sensitive green sense, which formed the habit of considering carbon footprint, resource efficiency, and environmental impact in everyday decision. In other words, environmental responsibility is not only taught in the classroom, it is coexist through students participate in green campus governance. Third, the green practice. At the same time, Tsinghua dedicates to expand green practice beyond the campus by providing students with professional green skills training and global platform for climate action. Through the Global Alliance of University on Climate, initiated by Tsinghua and partner university, our students take part in advanced activities such as the Climate Change Global Lectures and the Youth Leadership Program, where brilliant experts and professors from around the world provide deep training in climate science, policy, and green transition issues. These activities are open to young people globally and help students connect what they learn in their majors with the broader demise, decarbonization, and green development. Building on this foundation, Tsinghua also has deep cooperation to advance green skills for students with international organizations such as ILO. Under the ILO Green Pumps Initiative, a guide crow scale for the green transition has been cultivated for students with capabilities such as system thinking, environmental awareness, social dialogue, and problem solving. Not only that, after we're trained, students from Tsinghua University also experience the green skill, which they learned to high school students, local communities around the country through workshops during the deep dive and social practice. That is all I want to share with you. The example from Tsinghua University perfectly showing that youth are not only beneficiaries of the green transition, but empowering youth to innovate, to co-govern, and to practice. They could be co-creator of the green transition. Dear colleagues and young friends, in an era where opportunities and challenges coexist, we should carry the significant mission of green transition and shaping our shared future. May you write a magnificent chapter of youth in the broader vision of building a community with a shared future for mankind. Thank you all. Asante Salam.
Thank you, Dr. Xiao. I'd just like to mention that, of course, that brings you many reasons to come visit China, but another reason is that China has great food. So I highly recommend everyone to visit. But anyways, next up we have Vanya Yerena. Vanya Yerena is a Global South youth leader who has been advocating for quality education, especially in vulnerable places, to empower youth and insert them on the job market successfully. She has been contributing to policies worldwide enforced in more than 55 countries. Her passion towards education led her to implement schools and programs for young people in Peru, reason for which she has been awarded the Diana Award, the highest accolade of youth social impact as the first Peruvian ever in its history. Vanya, from your experience, what are the most critical gaps in current education and training systems that prevent young people from entering green jobs?
Thank you so much. Yeah. To start with, I would like to ask the panelists and also the people here present, how many of you have finished secondary or high school education? Can you please raise your hands? Well, if you look around the room, you're going to realize it's, I think, a lot of us, if almost not half of us. Thank you so much. So, yeah, this is an opportunity that we all had, but not many people had it. One of them was my grandma. She could never access quality education, let alone jobs. And that's the story of many people around the world, similar to my grandma. So According to the World Bank, in Peru, almost half of the youth from 25 to 34 years old, 49% of them have not accessed quality education in high school or secondary schools. That makes almost half of the youth of the country. So that's why making policies to change that, because youth and everyone deserve education, and not only education, but I always reinforce the fact that we all deserve quality education. Because what's the point of receiving an education that it's, for example, in another language that we don't understand, in our own local neighborhoods? Because that's the case in Peru. A lot of young people receive so-called education in another language that is not theirs. In rural communities, for example, in Puno, the local language in some communities is Aymara, an indigenous language. And the teachers who attend there are Spanish speakers. The kids have a challenge not only of the language, but to learn new things that they've never been exposed at before. Green jobs in Latin America, due to sustainable transition, are happening. However, it's not steady. But how can we talk about green jobs if we're not talking about a green education or a green mentality towards that? We cannot talk about that because, first of all, people, if they have no education, how can they access the job market, let alone the green job market? So I would say that, yes, the promotion of green jobs is great, but we need sustainable education. That's the reason why I've been advocating towards that and towards policies to change that. One example, I would say this was one of my first examples when I was pretty young. I mean, I'm still young though, but I'm just saying that, let's say around 16, because I was starting to do all of my advocacy since 14 years old. So when I was 16, I remember I had this, I don't know if it's amazing, but I had this idea of planting trees, in the sense that in Peru, at least on the coastlines, we have, maybe you have heard about it, El Niño y La Niña. So this is happening, like the floods, for example, come to the cities, a bunch of houses are taken away, and you can see a bunch of these things happening. So what's my idea towards this? Of course, at 16, I cannot end that, right? But like, I had the idea of having this sustainable education towards kids to teach them how it's happening in an interactive way, let's say. So what we did is throughout the coastlines of Lima, we planted trees, the kids, and we are talking about from 4 years old on. They were planting trees, taking care of them with their schools in the exact same places that El Niño and the Niña hit every single year. What they learned, that the Niño and La Niña were not only affecting the lands because they have heard about a bunch of these things on books, but were affecting that, in this case, the tree that they took care of for months. So just imagine the impact that since a young age, if you receive such, let's say, interactive way to know what's happening with that. So that was one of the first ones that I did. Many other countries in the region in general have followed sustainable education methods. For example, we have had documented the first one, Brazil, followed by Chile, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Guyana, Mexico, Peru, and Trinidad and Tobago. A recent study of August on this year have mentioned that at least in Peru, there is a need for economic transition, but not only that, a sustainable economic transition. So going back to the question of most of the critical gaps in current education, I would say, first, quality education, which is not being provided, at least not fully for all people, because like in my country, I'm pretty sure, like in every single country of ours, we haven't seen at least one person. There is at least one person who doesn't receive quality education, which education is a right though. And also, this study is recommended, in this case, Peru, to instill environmental justice through regulations and policies, research and inflows into exploration of environmental and sustainable projects within Peruvian metropolises in the Peruvian Amazon. In other words, what's working and what's not. Because why would she keep up with something that is clearly not working? Because times are changing, climate change is happening. Maybe before it worked because climate change was not as powerful, let's say, as nowadays. But now that's the reason why we are discussing Paris Agreement, the climate agenda, Agenda 2030, and a bunch of other things that probably you also have in your national agenda too. So yeah, and the systems to prevent young people to enter in these jobs. First of all, I wouldn't say green jobs necessarily, but I would say any jobs. To start with jobs, at least you need, again, education provided to everyone, quality-wise. So then when they have a green mindset, then after that, we can talk about having quality education linked to green jobs, because a lot of these youth do not know even what's about green jobs. They don't even have the idea of working because that was never on their plans, because they didn't even have the opportunity. So now that we can provide them with that, so now we can give not only a sustainable future for them, but a sustainable future worldwide. Sharon, back to you.
Thank you, Vanya. I really appreciate how you have provided a perspective on many of the youth in Peru and across the world that don't have the ability to speak. And I really appreciate that we have a youth perspective on here. Of course, we also have someone else afterwards. And one last thing, I think Peru has great food too. Great food. Thank you. Okay. So next up, we have Iman. Iman Berry is the co-founder of Green Ummah, a federally registered nonprofit that provides education on the religious connections to the environment and environmental justice for young people across Canada. GU works with educators, nature guides, indigenous communities, and scientists to develop school curricula on environmental justice and Islam and the environment. Beyond her work with GU, Iman educates on the intersection of climate and politics through lobbying, organizing political debates, and leading educational campaigns. She previously served at the Migration and Climate Change Contact Point and as a member of the Global Coordination Team for the Youth Constituency of the UNFCCC. For her environmental work, she has been recognized as a top 25 under 25 environmentalist and a young nature leader in Canada. So for you, Iman, what do you think would it take to redesign education and labor systems, not merely to adapt to the green transition, but to accelerate it, and which entrenched assumptions or institutional structures must be intentionally dismantled to enable a just transition?
Thank you so much, David. I'm really excited to join you all here today. I'd like to start off by maybe framing this discussion a little bit. So what I'll speak about today is our current education and labor systems and how they're structurally misaligned with the green transition. But maybe let's zoom out a little bit and take a look at the youth employment landscape in general right now. So today, 259 million youth are not in educational employment or training. That's around 1 in 5 youth globally. So that means 1 in 5 youth globally are not receiving any training, not in work currently. And that is definitely a huge issue. Youth unemployment sits at 13% global youth unemployment, and that's 3 to 4 times higher than for adults. System is also gender unequal. Young women are 2 times as likely to be NEET, not in youth NEET, not in youth education or employment. Than there are men. And this also, we can see there's also a regional divide. When we're taking a look at global north countries like the EU or Canada, NEET levels are 11%, 12%, as compared to a place like Senegal where it's 34.4%. So it's a gender issue. It's also a global south, global north divide. But what this tells us is that the problem is not only for green jobs, but jobs in general. So that makes tackling the green jobs issue so much more important, because green jobs can serve as a way out almost from the youth unemployment issue that is currently going on. But what we know is that green jobs currently do exist. Recent global estimates suggest that under a large-scale push, combining green, digital, and care economy transitions, global unemployment could be 139 million jobs higher by 2030. Global employment on green jobs could be 139 million jobs higher by 2030, with a quarter of those jobs going towards youth, age 15 to 29. And a 2025 global report warns of a global green skills gap, demand for green jobs expanding faster than supply. So what we know is that there are jobs out there, but a global survey says that only 29% of youth feel that they're equipped and have the green competencies, and only 9% have applied for a green job or currently hold a green job. So what we can say from that is that the jobs exist, and so does the talent, but the education and the people who would take these jobs is not necessarily there. So it's not necessarily translating to jobs for youth. But I think that is the biggest disconnect. So what is exactly the issue? Youth are feeling unprepared for green jobs. They don't have the skills, so the curricula is not built into their education, their vocational training, what they're learning in school. And also the market failure. Green jobs are being created, but they're unevenly distributed. They're not accessible to youth, women, or rural communities. And they might not be decent work. They might be low paying, insecure, informal work, which we're seeing is a huge issue for youth employment in general. So what this tells us about the assumptions that we currently have around work. So right now, green skills or green jobs are maybe seen as like a niche add-on. I'm sure you have seen many, I guess, like certificate programs at my university. There was a sustainability certificate that you could do, but I studied business. In the traditional business landscape, we weren't really learning about the green transition or green skills. So there needs to be core literacy, and it needs to be included in the core curriculum of what university vocational training programs are actually learning for green jobs. So the assumption that degrees actually equal employability, the way that green jobs and these skills are happening right now is that they are progressing faster, and the advancements in this area are happening faster than degree programs and universities can really keep up with. So that's why skills-based modular micro-credentials, experiential learning is so incredibly important, as well as government-sponsored training programs specifically for green jobs and green skills. Labor markets are also not neutral. This is no surprise to us that labor markets right now, they reproduce gender gaps, there's rural exclusion, class barriers. So there's an issue with labor in general. And the green transition kind of provides an opportunity to offset some of those difficulties in this new era of labor that we are ushering in. Also, one assumption that is really big is that when we're creating jobs, when a government creates like a job creation plan, that those jobs are for youth specifically. I think that's a huge assumption, but oftentimes there are very few entry-level roles that are available. I know I've been victim to this, trying to find entry-level jobs on LinkedIn, and I'm sure many people can relate to that as well. So what does this redesign look like that we need to have? I think first off, there needs to be a national green skills strategy. So countries, member states need to adopt some sort of program where they're mapping future labor demand by sector, so energy, buildings, mobility, agri-food, to like the, I guess, like educational system in their country. So then like including like universities in this and telling the universities that these are the skills and these are the things that like our economy needs in the future, and this is what we need to educate youth on. Also, like mandate private sector involvement, getting companies to actually create these jobs and move towards these like areas. This basically makes the link between work and education more pronounced, which is a huge issue for governments, is like taking that education and actually making it into jobs. Also, micro-credentials and apprenticeship ecosystems. So currently in Canada, we actually developed a Green Jobs Corp, and it was recently included in the budget. So what this is it's a program where the Canadian government sponsors jobs and training for people who might not have any, I guess, like formal training in the green jobs sector, and trains these people to become green jobs workers and sort of start their careers that way. And I think more programs like this, where no experience needed, is incredibly important because oftentimes people don't have that experience, like referencing the NEET number that we had mentioned before. Also, with this green transition, we have an opportunity to pronounce and really focus on changing our labor system. So having social protections for workers, having fair labor, fair wages, making the care economy more important. Also gender responsive design, making sure women are more included. Again, the care economy, child care, access to barriers, as well as youth entrepreneurship. If youth entrepreneurship is invested in, that'll create more green jobs for everybody. But one last point that I wanted to make is why this is so important for just transition. So if we take a look at the harsh reality of green jobs, is that while there will be more green jobs coming in, there will need to be retraining for oil workers, people working in those like extractive industries and the industries that we are moving away from. So according to some World Economic Forum estimates, the green transition will phase out 2.4 million jobs globally by 2030 while creating 9.6 million new ones. And I think that's really important because I think that's one of the big fears is, oh, these jobs are going to be phased out, but they can be replaced with other jobs for youth, for like other workers. And that's why these retraining programs that we were talking about is so important to have work for those people that will be out of jobs based on this like new green transition. And that is how I think we can have a very just transition, one that is fair for everybody and one that works for everybody. And that's why it's crucial that we provide those alternatives. But overall, I think the jobs are there, the opportunity for training is there. I think oftentimes it's for our governments to actually invest in this and really focus on this issue of green jobs and green transition, because really involving everybody in this transition is how we are going to actually make it work. But overall, that's all from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Iman. I think you mentioned the importance of providing training programs, of teaching the skills needed for the green transition. And this kind of echoes what a lot of the speakers mentioned previously, so that's great to hear. We'll be moving on to the Q&A section. We have around 10 minutes, and so we'll be, okay, I saw in the back over there. I saw you first.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sharon Osembo. So I am Kenyan, and growing up, basically, I have grown up in the 844 system, which is 8 years in primary school, 4 years in secondary, 4 years in undergraduate. And then what we've been told was read, and then everything will fall into place. You'll get that job as long as you have good grades. And we did that. But then we went into the job market, and then the reality really hit us, or rather hit me in this instance. So you find that people are now saying, which we've also heard from the panel, certificates are not enough, you need experience. And we are young people, yes, we also want to gain the experience. So we go to the job market and they say, you need to be proactive, you need to have transferable skills, all that we've had and we are trying to do. So you go ahead and try to be proactive and get all these certificates, do all the other short courses. For example, Udemy, Coursera, we can go on. But then you also go back to the entry-level jobs and you apply and you're being told it's not enough. Not enough in this sense. So for example, I'll give 2 instances where so when I was told we need more experience, you go and then you do internships. You do internships, and then one job that I had applied for earlier, I was told that I had 2 internships, 6 months, and they said that basically the 6 months need to be divided into 2 to become 3 months of work experience, which I was just surprised. And this is the environmental sector that we're talking about. The other experience that I got is I had applied for a role in the energy sector, and everything was going on. I was told there was, I have the papers, but I do not have the sector-specific experience. But then this was an entry-level job. So if you're told that you don't have the sector-specific and you're willing to learn, so you're basically not qualified because you don't have the experience, which is now frustrating as a young person, because for the conversations that I've been having with young people here and also outside there is that we are being told that we do not have experience and we're trying to be proactive. And the system is making it really frustrating for us to get these roles that we are interested in. So how do you advise young people who are navigating these barriers, who are navigating these huge roadblocks, how to navigate, to just basically move on and be hopeful? Because from the panel, we've had that jobs are there, and I agree jobs are there, but why are they making it difficult for young people to access these jobs and get the experience and the skills that they're seeing to transition? Thank you.
I think I can take this. I didn't get your name. Sharon? Where is she? Oh, there.
Sharon, yes.
All right, Sharon. And yeah, I'm sorry about this frustration. And it's not a failure on your part, Sharon. And I know that doesn't help. when you're trying to get into the job market. And you know, there are a couple of things. We're saying that the jobs are there, but the reality also is that we don't have enough jobs for those that are leaving training institutions. All right. So there's one area where we need to create more jobs. The economy needs to expand more so that we can accommodate more of those that are leaving training institutions. And again, Sharon, that's not on your part. It's, you know, that's at a higher private sector, you know, stimulating more jobs, having an enabling environment so that businesses can grow. And that is provided by policy, by government. Now, the other area is on the skills mismatch. Yeah, for those of you who are Kenyans and probably worked in a couple of African countries, there's, and I've had it for so long. I hope one day it's gonna change, one day soon. The skills mismatch. You know, you're told that the graduates are half-baked. Have you had? Imagine a half-baked cake. Yeah, no one wants to eat a half-baked cake. And unfortunately, it is because many young people do not get real work experience, like go to a workplace, be supervised, take on tasks, you know, in a way that is meaningful, in a way that you actually learn. I don't know how many of you here have gone through internships and felt that they were meaningful. Some are not so great. And because I always say, if you go to a factory, it could be that you have the best pipeline manager. He knows or she knows how to do that job. They may not necessarily understand very well how to train someone else to be as good as them. All right. And so investing in capacities as well of those that have the opportunity to oversee young people that are getting into workplaces is very important. And that is something we have done in Kenya. And let me surprise you. Kenya has been independent for 60 years, and we only supported the development of an in-company training manual 3 years ago. 3 years ago. So the question was, what tool was being used to prepare those in-company trainers that have actually been training people? Maybe some of them did a good job, maybe others didn't do a very good job, but we are putting those in place. Lastly is really the strong role of the private sector. Many times when the private sector mentions that, you know, we don't have good talent, and I ask, is your workplace open for young people to come and actually learn? And that is something, work-based learning is absolutely important, and embedding it better into the training curriculum. Because what you see now is that the training is too theory heavy. Yeah. So how do we find a balance where there is the classroom training or the training institution training, you know, location, but spending a lot more time in industry, because that is where you get the hands-on training. Soft skills is something that is also coming up as quite important. There are soft skills you don't just necessarily get when you're learning. You know, the work ethic, the work dynamics, how do you relate with people? It's very different how you relate in university and how you relate in a workplace. And those are the skills that employers are looking at. So I hope that this provides just a little bit of comfort, Sharon, that there is work in progress, and we hope that we'll see those bits, those different parts of the cog coming together and really opening up more opportunities for young people.
Thank you so much, Carolyn, for that response. Just as a reminder, everyone's free to contact the speakers after this is ended to have any extra questions. We'll take one more from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I would love to thank the panelists for their interventions. My name is Ounianfer. I'm from Morocco. I'm soon to be a doctor, and I'm the regional focal point of the Africa region with CYMG. So nowadays, we are not asked to be just doing our
sole graduation or majors professionals, but we are asked to be open. So for example, I work in the AMR field in climate and health, and sometimes even in health tech. So this requires to get so many experiences and certificates. Sadly, UN certificates are not recognized by the UN themselves. So if you apply for a job opportunity and you have a consultancy and you put UN certificates, it's not that heavy in terms of power. And here comes the role of academia, and I really was inspired by the work that Tsinghua University is doing, and I was wondering if they are opening like online courses for students worldwide to learn more about the environmental stewardship courses that you're developing. So this was my question and introduction for.
Yes, we have online courses. Before I mentioned, we have online courses for globally. Every young leaders or students, pupils can go to our website to take the online course to know more knowledge. Thank you.
Apologies, but we are really low on time. So before we end, we will have Luke deliver some ending remarks, a conclusion for this panel. And I'm really happy to see that everyone has a lot of energy here. Feel free to contact any of our speakers after the panel. Thank you.
So yeah, I'm going to give some closing remarks, which I think is quite difficult, not only because I'm the one person standing between you all and your lunch, but also because of the range of interesting topics and themes that were covered by all of the panelists in their interventions and through the discussion afterwards as well. And really what I took away from this session is the importance, the centrality of green jobs, green skills to the energy and sustainability transitions. We often think about them in terms of technical transitions moving towards net zero, but really at their heart, they are socioeconomic. They are about people's livelihoods, people's jobs, people's workplaces, etc. And I think we heard here from all of our panelists around the challenges, but also the opportunities that that offers. And really, I think that the key theme that I'm going to take away from this, the key thought, is that we shouldn't be thinking about green jobs or green skills in isolation. We should be thinking about how that can apply throughout society, throughout businesses, not just specialized individual modules in universities, in schools, but mainstreaming these topics into all discussions, and most importantly, including youth into those, and making sure that we are equipped with the skills, with the knowledge, with the experience to access these green jobs that we know the sustainability transition towards net zero will bring. So with that, I'd like to close and thank all of the lovely panelists for their interventions and for you all for your time spent in this session. Thank you.